ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवागं स्वस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Okay, so just to recollect, we have seen that 6 students have approached Rishi Pippalada and a list of names were given, their gotras were given, some where the place they came from, different aspects were given during that time. And after staying there for 1 year, as asked by Rishi Pippalada, doing tapas, brahmacharya, and shraddha, the first question was asked by Kabandhi Katyayana. You have seen, and he said, Atha kadambhi Katyayana upetya prapacha. He asked that question. Bhagavan kutohava imaha prajaha prajayanta iti. So where from these creatures are born? Where from or whence are these creatures born from? Where did they come from? So many these ones. So what we have seen is the gist of this question essentially was that his name itself, Kabandhi Katyayana, the Katyayana word is actually whose great grandfather is alive. So essentially where the situation where he is coming from is that there are many people around him and he is seeing many people getting born, many children getting born, and they seem to be having a long life, fortunately for them. So he is actually coming out and asking the question of where these creatures are coming from. Shankaracharya, as I mentioned, his take on this question essentially was that this one was more in terms of what will be the effect of a karma when it is done only as a karma, or when it is also karma is associated with upasana, how will I look at it? Now, very difficult to link these two, one person coming and asking where creatures are coming from, where is this upasana coming from? So once you hear the answer Pippalada is giving, that actually takes back to what Shankara is telling here in terms of this gist, what he has given in here. What we are seeing here, as I mentioned, there are 2 ways of looking at this creation. Once you start questioning the creation, nature of creation, etc., there are 2 ways to really look at this particular aspect. One is called Karya Karana Viveka. So once you start understanding this, one way to look at this creation was, what is the cause for me to be here? And me can be defined either as the chit aspect, that the consciousness aspect, or it can be looked at as the
body.
Chit, Sat aspect. Sat aspect is the existence. Existence is more in terms of the body, physical body associated with that. So when you look at body, it appears to be very clear that 2 people come together, and as a result of that, this body is getting created. So, and you can go one above. So we have sometimes this one in terms of this family trees getting drawn, that I come from so and so, and here I am. And there is a limit to which you can go really in terms of this, because memory is short, records are not there, and many people don't even know after the 4th grandparent, difficult to even know the names associated with where we came from, basically. So this Karya Karana Vichara is what is being told here. see, second one as you can go is what is called from consciousness perspective. If you go, it is called Drik Drishya Viveka. Means Drik is there, Drishya is there. Drik is the seer or the having person who is looking at, and Drishya is the object at which one is looking. So that is another aspect which we can go. So here it appears to be a Karya Karana Vichara. He is clearly asking us where creatures are coming from. So he is looking at from the Karya Karana Vichara is what we must be looking at here, is what we have seen already. Yeah. So to him replying, I think we read already the fourth verse also, yeah, which we said, Tasmai Sahovacha Praja Kamau Vai Prajapatihi. So Praja Kamau Vai Prajapatihi Sa Tapo Tapyata Sa Tapatvatva Sa Mithuna Mutpadayate Rayincha Pranamcha Rayamcha Pranam Cheti Yetau Me Bahuda Prajaha Karishyata iti. So he has started answering. Who? Rishi Pippalada started answering this question. But obviously it appears he is not interested in answering him in a immediate physical body associated with that as to how creatures are getting born. So he is not really giving a biology class here, obviously. So he is now starting at a place where I think the student also might not have expected. So he is telling Prajapati. Prajapati, the second line is there, Prajapati. So Prajapati is that particular Hiranyagarbha, as we call that, you know. So in our Shastras, the creation process, in Bhagavatam you will find this very clearly given, possibly in other places also. There are many texts which give us, says that Brahman is there and he creates this particular creation with Maya, yeah, with the help of Maya. And Maya is nothing but three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Maya is made up of three gunas. So when the Brahman gets associated with the Sattva guna as the Upadhi, as we call that, yeah, then the created entity we call it as Ishvara. And because it is Sattva guna is associated with knowledge. What we say is that Brahman with Sattva guna as the Upadhi creates Ishvara. But Ishvara, because he is created out of Sattva guna, which is knowledge, is under no delusion. He doesn't have any avidya. He doesn't have any ignorance associated. So he is clear. Although he is a created entity, remember, he is also part of Prapancha, but he doesn't have any ignorance. He knows his own nature as the nature of Brahman. Yeah. Second is in Rajoguna. When the same Brahman associated with Rajoguna, the created entity, Rajoguna, when you say it's not pure Rajoguna, these gunas are all mixed up. So Rajoguna Pradhana, as we call that. Pradhana is essentially Rajoguna, but there is a mix of Sattva, mix of Tamas in everywhere. Mm-hmm. Then comes a Jiva associated with that. Yeah? And when Tamoguna is there, same Brahman, you go to Tamoguna, and Tamoguna will give you the Jagat. So this is the three entities of created world as the creation goes. Yeah, Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. Three entities are there. All three are mithya. Remember, all three is only a manifested world we are talking about. Now, the same three, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, are indicated by the trinity of gods we have. So, Sattva Guna is equal to Mahavishnu, Rajoguna is equal to Brahma, Chaturmukha Brahma, and Tamoguna is associated with Rudra. So when we talk about Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, as we normally refer to, that Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara or Rudra, as we call, these three are nothing but the representation of gunas at the highest level. Okay. Now this Chaturmukha Brahma, what we are talking about, is the one who is the creator of this universe. And that creator of universe of Chaturmukha Brahma is this Prajapati.
Which is the fourth mukh? First is the Brahman, second is the first is the Ishwar, second is Jiva, third is Jagat.
Correct.
So which is the fourth one? Brahman is himself. But don't have.
Sorry. You are getting confused with Chaturmukha when we call that.
Yeah.
It is that Brahma himself is having 4 mukhas. That is different.
Okay.
The entities that got created are Ishvara, Jiva and Jagat.
Okay.
But the gunas that we are talking about which created them, the gunas are represented as a gods in terms of Vishnu, Brahma and Maheshwara.
Yeah.
Now that Brahma is represented by 4 mukhas. And those 4 mukhas are people have tendency to say that those 4 are actually 4 Vedas.
Right.
They are representative of 4 Vedas. Means essentially it is the knowledge that he has got.
Okay.
And that knowledge who gives? Actually Vishnu gives him the knowledge. It's very interesting in Bhagavatam.
Vishnu gives him the knowledge and Brahma writes it down.
Brahma, you can say writes it down, or he just imbibes that knowledge basically, and he creates this entire world. And does he create on its own whatever he wants? No, actually the jivas are already got created, and every jiva has got their own vasanas, karma, everything that they are bringing into this world, and that Brahma gets the knowledge from Vishnu about this entire aspects of the jiva and what all things they have to go through as prarabdha karma, and he creates a world that is suitable to take care of that. That is what they say. Yeah? That is how the entire creation is described. Why I am telling that is that particular Chaturmukha Brahma whom we are talking about is referred to as this Prajapati here. Okay. So Prajapati is the one who is creating this, but he is creating with the knowledge given by Vishnu, is what our Bhagavatam says. Okay. Praja Kamo Hevi Prajapati. So a very important aspect is being told here. Kama means desire. Yeah. So, and this particular aspects that are coming down to Jiva or Jagat or wherever they are, the same aspect of Brahman, like this Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they are there everywhere. And these Sattva, Rajas and Tamas have got a tendency to reflect in this world as, in English we can say is as being and knowing. Sat and Chit. Sat is being, Chit is knowing. Yeah, this is an English translation, we can roughly make it. Yeah, means what? Sat means being, means existence. Existence in terms of physical body, physical world around. So we can actually feel that particular this one. So that becomes a physical aspect of being. Knowing is consciousness or awareness aspect that also comes through the Sat aspect which is there. So this knowing aspect is the consciousness aspect. The being aspect is the Sat aspect. I hope I am not going too much above in terms of this. But basically why we are trying to talk about that is, here this Prajapati is said to have created 2 things. One is called Prana, other is called Rai. So it's nothing but, this Rai is nothing but that aspect of being. The Sat aspect which is there is being named as Rai here. And the awareness, consciousness aspect which comes down is referred to as the Prana here. See, Raincha Pranamcha is nothing but the Prana, the Sat and Chit aspects. We must actually relate back to, once Prajapati is given, the entire story of Prajapati and how creation came about as Sat Chit Ananda, we must understand that particular aspect in terms of this. And the Sat and Chit then creates this entire gamut of jivas that we are seeing in this particular world. Pranamcha, Raincha. Does it make sense?
No.
No? Good. If you understand, then the problem is there. So, Prana and Rai, the 2 aspects got created, and he says that these 2 aspects, he thought that they will then in turn create this multitude of jivas around. So what did Prajapati do? He created 2 aspects which are there. 2 aspects which are called Prana and Rai. I am linking it to Sat and Chit,
Chit.
of the aspects which are there, which is nothing but being and knowing. Yep, that is my take on that. Okay.
In Bhagavad Gita, we have heard simply that Brahma created the Maya. And from Maya, everything came.
Brahman created Maya.
Maya.
Your Brahman and
Hold on.
you are
Brahman,
using
Brahman
loosely.
created Maya.
Okay.
And then from there, everything else came.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. How they came? When you say they came, how did they come? Because you have to explain what is there here. What do you see around here? You see multitude of jivas here. It is not Maya who is roaming around here.
Okay. But in Maya, we included those 5 elements, right?
Elemental aspect is actually more in terms of Satta. Sat and Chit, which are there, are having 2 aspects that you are talking about, the 5 elements,
Yes.
Panchabhuta.
Yeah.
Again, go back to your Viveka Chudamani. I am sure attending
Yes.
by Viveka Chudamani. There he says that this Panchabhutas, as they call, they are of 2 types. One is called Tanmatra. Tanmatra is also having the 5 aspects of space, air, fire, water and earth. So 5 are there in terms of Tanmatra. So no, the same prana can be taken as Tanmatra, which will then give a conscious entity in terms of individual jiva, individual mind, intellect, etc. And the same 5 elements, Shankaracharya says, with something called Panchikaranam, a process, they turn into Mahabhuta. Again, Mahabhutas are Akasha, Vayuhu, Agnihi, Apaha, Prithvi. So, same 5 elements are kind of coagulized, they become more Ghanibhuta, means they become very gross.
Solid.
Solid, gross. And that gross elements are also named the same, but now they are capable of producing a Jagat associated. So the Jiva comes from Tanmatras, same elements, whereas the Jagat comes from Mahabhuta. Same 5 elements. Can you relate that now?
No.
In terms of Prana and Rai?
Yeah, Prana and Rai.
So
yes.
Prana is Tanmatra, Rai is Mahabhuta. Okay, so Mahabhuta is a combination of all the Tanmatras. In Panchikaranam, what will happen? The half of one element will get added to 1/8 of all the other 4 elements to create that Mahabhuta. So these are all aspects which are given, and as I mentioned, many of these creation theories, they may differ from one Upanishad to the other Upanishad. What they say ultimately, they say is these creation processes are more in terms of intellectual exercises. It is not an intuitive science given like other intuitive knowledge given to the rishis, but this is more of a logical interpretation they are trying to make to explain the existing snake that is manifested out of the rope as prapancha. But really speaking, we deny that, we negate the reality associated with that anyway, so it doesn't matter what is the theory that is being presented. Ultimately, that's what will
One
come
more
through.
question. These Upanishads are part of the Vedas, right? And they have come they have appeared at the end of the Vedas, right?
They are fitted by Vyasa at different places, but really speaking, it's part of the Veda. Veda is a
Vedas.
knowledge which it has just come.
Yeah, okay. So it has come later on.
That's what I'm telling. If Vishnu is giving that knowledge to Brahma, please don't think he is giving like what we are having of yearly, monthly classes that goes on to Brahma forever.
He just gives in one vision or something.
He just gives and it comes. So whether it comes later or earlier is something which is very difficult to answer.
Yeah, okay. That was not my question. My question is only that if there are only 4 Vedas, how come there are so many Upanishads?
That is another way to look at this particular thing is there are variety which is there in terms of the jivas, their own concepts, their own abilities, their own skills, how they understand. Some people may understand Sat aspects better. So there are some Upanishads which give in terms of the Sat aspect. There are some Upanishads which are giving more in terms of the chit aspect, the consciousness aspect.
So this is most likely different interpretations by different rishis at different periods of time.
We can take it that way.
Okay.
We can take it that way. But truth is one. That Jiva Brahmaikyam is the one truth which is given in all the Upanishads.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what it is, that oneness.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that Sat and Chit that are coming, the Prajapati that he is giving Prana and Rai, I may see different creations based on Prana and Rai, but ultimate truth is even Prana and Rai, they are not two different aspects, they are one and the same, and that one is Prajapati.
And here in this explanation of word meaning, Rayim is here matter.
Correct.
And Prana is here energy.
Correct.
Same anyway.
Yeah, so Rai is the Sat aspect, creation, that we are talking about matter, and Prana is the energy aspect or awareness aspect of the knowing aspect.
Okay.
Is the two different aspects that got created. But in other terms, we will also hear that Maya is equal to Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and these three in turn created this entire universe. Mm-hmm. So it's a question of words what we are really looking at. But what is being treated is, what is being told essentially is that there appears to be two different things that you are seeing when you try to analyze a person, when you analyze anything that is there, even a river, for example, or a mountain. You take any of the aspects that got created, inbuilt is there is a vitality associated with that particular matter that got created, and there is a material aspect which got created, Tanmatra and Mahabhuta. There appears to be two aspects to the entire creation. For example, water is there. You may say it is inert, but it appears to go through certain aspects that are inbuilt into that which makes it water. For example, that anomalous expansion of water is there when it turns into ice, when it turns into steam. There seems to be a process associated with everything that we are seeing here. So there is a vitality associated with every inert aspect, and there is a material aspect associated with every created aspect. Our body also goes through similar ones. Yeah. But we have a tendency to take body as me rather than part of the world. So if you want to go through a material aspect, there is a path given as Karya Karana Viveka. If you want to go through a aspect of the knowledge aspect that we are talking about, the prana aspect, you have Drik Drishya Viveka. That there are two aspects or two paths. Ultimately, you will realize that these two are one and the same. They are not really two different aspects. They are kind of interchangeable. So when Einstein comes and says E is equal to mc square, difficult for us to understand, but maybe very easy for scientists to understand that energy and matter, they are one and the same. Only they manifest differently depending upon a particular aspect they have gone through. Yeah. So this is what I think this particular verse is telling us. So some question may come. Okay. Next we will read, and then I think we will see.
Here it says on page 43.
43.
It says, thus we find how the Creator is really helpless. We always think Creator is quite powerful. Here it says Creator is really helpless, and how he will have to create a world according to the type of vasanas that are waiting to play themselves out in their favor. Yeah. So that's what shows Maya is very powerful, right?
Correct. I was trying to explain that only when I mentioned it to you, that Brahma gets this knowledge and he creates, but not necessarily that he is having any real flexibility in terms of what type of world comes through. It is infinite jivas and their prarabdha and their vasana which will prompt him to create a world where the jivas that got created will expend their prarabdha karma. So to finish it off, And not in one janma. It is what we say is each of these has got
Many,
multiple
many.
janmas where people will take birth, rebirth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, etc. and come out to get rid of their prarabdha karma. So it is not one as per our this one. That is what we are really looking at. Yeah.
It will come slowly. Okay.
Another way to look at this prana and rai. Yeah. Prana is something which we call as formless. So, and the term that is used in Sanskrit is called amurtam. And the rai aspect, which is the matter aspect, is murtam. It is with form. Look at it that from, and this is what we experience every day. There are certain things that are amurtam, there are things which are murtam. So amurtam and murtam, like this, actually it's all pairs that they come through. Something is called bhodyam, other is called bhojyah. Means the person who eats and things which are eatable associated.
Eatable. Okay.
And sun and the moon are representation of these aspects that come through in terms of this. And there is something called atru annam. Means again, annam is the food that we eat. Atru is the eater of that. When Shankaracharya says, that kalo jagat bhakshakah. So it appears that everything that gets created is getting devoured by time. Time actually is the devourer of the entire universe we talk about. Yeah. Anyway, another way of knowing is that this particular prana is like the prana is the vitality that is associated with the creation, and rai is the one which actually gives it a mass. When something is getting a mass associated with that mass is the rai aspect, and the vitality aspect of that is the prana aspect. So here the Pippalada is going at a very high level to start with. That these two are created by that Prajapati, and everything else is done by this one. What we will see in this answer that is given by Rishi Pippalada, he will talk about, first is called Mithuna Srushti. Srushti is the creation. Yeah? Mithuna means jewel, the two elements of prana and rai. Mithuna Srushti. Then he will go into something called Loka Srushti. Loka is nothing but the experience one will have with the combination of these two Mithuna. The Loka Srushti will come into picture. Loka is the field of experience. Loka Srushti. Third one he talks about is Kala Srushti. How time is getting created. Time creation is a very something which actually no Upanishad will directly talk. Only they talk about this in an indirect way. Called Kala Srushti. Fourth one he talks about is Anna Srushti. The food that gets created, Anna Srushti. And the fifth one finally he talks about is Praja Srushti. How creatures got created. So these five aspects he is talking about when the question actually is about Praja Srushti. Question that always asked where from these creatures are coming, but he goes to Mithuna Srushti, Kala Srushti, Loka Srushti, Kala Srushti, Anna Srushti and Praja Srushti.
Let me write it. So, first is what?
Mithuna Srushti. Mithuna is the already we have seen. Prana and Rai. Mithuna Srushti.
Okay.
Mithuna. Srushti. Second one is called Loka Srushti.
Loka Srushti. Okay.
Third one is Kala Srushti.
Okay.
And fourth one is Anna Srushti. Annam is food.
Mm-hmm.
And fifth one is Praja Srushti. So he will go through all these different aspects. Okay.
Okay.
We'll go with the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Adityo havai prano.
Adityo hai prano.
Raireva chandrama.
Raireva chandrama.
Rairva etat sarvam.
Rairva etat sarvam.
Yanmurtam cha murtam cha
Yanmurtam cha murtam cha
tasman murtireva raihi.
tasman murtirevaihi. Again.
Okay. Tas
Ma
adityo havai prano
adito havai prano
raireva chandrama
raireva chandrama
rairvo etat sarvam
rairva. I think it's
rairva etat sarvam yanmurtam cha murtam cha
Yanmurtam cha murtam cha
tasman murtireva raihi.
tasman murtireva raihi.
If you just go by the word meaning of that, very confusing.
Yeah.
It says here Aditya means is the Surya or the sun, which is associated with that is called Aditya. And we are talking about Loka Srishti here, yeah. So how the lokas get created, he is now talking about at a very high level. So Aditya vai prano. So prana is nothing but verily sun. So he is now defining that prana, which we said is amurtam, but he is bringing sun to represent that. Sun is obviously murtam, but he is telling that sun is the prana associated with that. Raireva chandrama. So Chandra is the Rai aspect. So now there is a symbolism that he is bringing in for us to understand the concepts of prana and Rai here. Yeah. And Raireva etat sarvam. All these have forms. All the aspects that we are seeing are having forms. So he is telling sun is also having a form. Means but prana is also having a form and Rai is also having a form. And all that which is formless, yan murtam cha amurtam cha. Murtam cha amurtam cha. So that which is formless
And
all having that form is matter. He is declaring everything as matter. Initially what we thought, Rai is having matter and prana is the amurtam, which is the other aspect associated with that. But he says everything is matter. And therefore, form is indeed matter. So he is now defining to say that the prana and Rai that we thought as different aspects which are there, in a sense they are one and the same. And I can look at prana and Rai as the matter itself. So he is now coming out with the different disciplines of bringing them together. Although I experience consciousness as different from my physical aspects associated, the form and formless both can be looked at in terms of the matter. Does it make sense? Obviously, slightly difficult concept that we require to imbibe. And that is the reason why this particular Upanishad is treated as Upasana related. One must do a contemplation on the concepts that are being given here to understand that oneness associated with this entire creation. My experience is only division, multiplicity. Whereas what I am trying to understand is the oneness associated with this entire one. So prana, here we can take it this way. Prana makes the matter exist. So if matter is there, matter cannot exist on its own. The prana is required for the Rai to exist. Similarly, Rai is required for prana to, we cannot say exist, but to experience. So in prana, we can experience the prana in our matter because of the prana supporting this particular matter associated with that. And matter is of two types. We can take it that way. Matter is of two types. One is with the form, other with the formless. I may think my mind is actually more in terms of prana. But what is being told here, mind is also matter. What is formless? Thoughts, ideas which are there. So in your mind and intellect, whatever aspects are there, the thoughts that are there is being told, they can be looked at as the matter itself. They are not really prana, they are the matter or the Rai.
That's the
associated
Chudamani
with
thing.
that.
It comes, the Chudamani says that mind is also not
Matter, yeah. Means we can take it again, take it this way. What is the thought? Really speaking, what is the thought? When you look at an object, the object is coming into your eyes, and from the eyes, the object is going into your mind, and I am forming a thought that this is a book. This is Upanishad's book, let us say. When we talk about that, in my mind, really the book has come into my mind through the eye, or only a thought has come into my mind, or the concept of book has now sitting in my mind, and now you take out that book, and if somebody says a blue covered book was sitting there, I can visualize that book in my mind. So every thought has got certain meaning associated with that, and that particular meaning is associated with a matter outside. That matter will then give me a concept of the book in me. And if somebody tomorrow comes and says, no, it's not blue colored book, similar thickness, but it is red colored, I can now imagine a red colored book. But it is still an object outside sitting in my mind in the form of a thought, which is nothing but the matter. So when I say that the entire thing is matter, the matter is nothing but my thoughts associated, my ideas associated, everything is nothing but the matter which is there outside. So form is indeed matter, that we know anyway, and forms outside are the reason for the thoughts and ideas to exist in me. We should take it that way. And also, forms constitute matter, means thoughts are nothing but matter outside. Even though matter reflect every thought reflect a matter outside, as I was trying to say that. Yeah. Another way to look at this particular thing is form and formless. If we say that mind is not matter, Gurudev says you stop eating for 7 days and see whether your matter in the mind exists or not. If you say that this is not so, that is not supported, the same annam, the physical food that we are taking in are responsible for both body as well as your mind. So Chandogya Upanishad goes into more details in terms of this as to how much portion of your annam goes towards body, how much portion of it goes towards your mind, etc. So the mind and thoughts and ideas cannot exist without a physical input of the food that we are taking. So that also says that this particular thought that we are talking as amurtam is nothing but matter associated with that.
We're going to this extent to explain matter, but eventually we want to come to where everything is formless.
That will go into, yes, once you negate this reality associated with that particular physical body, then you say that everything is formless in that sense. But really speaking, when you talk about formless also, there are two aspects associated. One is the thought and ideas that individually I entertain is one formless. And that formless Brahman is different concept altogether, because of which even the mind exists. In Kathopanishad, I think we heard Guruji talking about, where the question is coming as to, tell me that which makes my eye function as an eye. My ear makes it hear. My skin makes it know the touch. What is that makes these different pancha pranas or this one's work, Jnanendriyas work? So that particular aspect, if you take, that also is amurtam. But really speaking, that amurtam is not really linked to murtam. Here, when we talk about murtam and amurtam, it is only my experience that I am taking, that one is murtam with form that my senses can take in, is one murtam. The amurtam is, I don't require senses to understand and experience that. If my thought is there, I don't require my eye to say what I am thinking. I don't require any of the five senses to gain that knowledge of that amurtam. But that amurtam is also linked to murtam, is what this is telling. Whereas what you are telling is formless, is a step above formless. It is not linked to the murtam amurtam of the experience that we are looking at. You get that? For example, when we smell something, a beautiful, nice smell that we are taking, is smell Murtam or Amurtam?
Murta.
So if a whiff of smoke is coming, then I can see the smoke. I can actually see it. Yeah. Sometimes a wind is coming. I may not see it, but I can feel it on my skin. So what we are telling is some of them can be amurtam in that sense, but they are still experienced through our five senses, jnanendriyas. As long as it is experienced by jnanendriya, you can take that as murtam and amurtam at that level, at a physical level. So wind is not murtam, it doesn't have a form, but it has got a touch. So I can experience that particular this one. Whereas the thought is a subtle level above even this amurtam. That amurtam is, there is no form at all to my thought associated. In that sense, if you take it at this one. But still, what we are telling is even that level of thought and idea is linked to this murtam or the link to the objects associated, because I cannot have a thought without me getting a concept of an object outside. All my thoughts are linked to the objects outside, whatever creation outside. But when say objects, even smell is an object. Smell whiffing through a wind is an object in that sense. So when we say objects, sense objects, you take it that way. So sense objects can be a sound, touch, all the five jnanendriyas. Whereas thought is a little subtler level, but here it is telling even that is nothing but murtam, matter. So murtam amurtam, it says matter. So mind with your thoughts and ideas are also matter, and the outside aspects obviously is matter. I can take it both in terms of this matter, and the food that we experience is the one which is sustaining both. As Gurudev says in this explanations, is that body and mind both deteriorate if you don't take annam. It's not that if I don't take annam, my mind is functioning brightly, but my body is deteriorating. No, both will go away. So that is the concept that both either murtam or amurtam can be treated as matter. Matter is what? Rai we say.
Right.
Yeah. So here sun is associated with the energy aspect, both form and formless. The energy aspect is there in both form and formless, both sun is there. Adityo hovai prano and Raireva Chandrama. Moon is a matter within and without. So when you say matter, don't think that matter is only outside representing the physical world out. Even my mind, the thoughts and the very concept of idea that I am creating, all of them are matter, and this is represented by the moon. Yeah? So in fact, many of we have that concepts, that mind is linked to the moon. And when full moon and new moon is there, people who are lunatic people will go into a different level of their lunatism. Is something which is experienced in, we say, in this world. Yeah? So moon linking to the matter and matter linking to the mind is already a concept which is seen in this world as we see that. Yeah. So moon becomes the deity for the mind, and what is being told here, since prana and rai both are manifested by Prajapati, this Prajapati represents the form and formless and the entire aspect of creation that I am thinking as me. Important, please come back to why we are thinking. Me, either I can define myself as the physical body, which is a matter, or the mind, which I think is subtle, and intellect is much more inner indriya as the inner instrument. There's a subtle difference between this intellect and mind. I hope you all remember through different this ones, that intellect is an inner organ compared to the mind. Why? Because it is controller of the mind. Intellect is controller of the mind in that sense. Both are thoughts. Really speaking, no difference between a thought in the
thought travels, occurs in the mind, but the thought, the intellect is, like you say, it's further, it's deeper.
It controls the mind.
Yeah. The way they put it, the intellect is the seer or the doer. So that aham, that ego is there in your intellect, whereas it uses the mind as an instrument.
Yeah.
Mind becomes the seer, body becomes the instrument. Means eye becomes instrument, skin becomes instrument for the mind to get that. That is what Drik Drishya Viveka is. Who is the seer? What is the instrument that seer uses to experience the concept of world outside? So if you take it that way, intellect becomes the seer, the ego, and the mind becomes an instrument associated with that. And I become the seer, intellect will change its terms into a instrument rather than a seer or doer.
And also ego has two aspects, right? The higher aspect and this aspect.
So the higher aspect, when you talk about, I'm telling the higher aspect will become the seer, intellect's lower becomes the seen. So it becomes an instrument for the I to use, that Jivatma. And there is one more, we say that even capital I becomes an object when I take that Brahman as me. That comes as a different.
That capital I should disappear.
Hmm?
At that point, that capital I is no longer.
Because you are Brahman. You realize that. Too
Right?
long
it's
way to
not
go
an object,
here.
it just isn't there. It should, in my thought, the way I'm thinking of it.
True. What you are telling is true, but experientially, rishis say that when you do sadhana, there are two types of superimposition that happens in this world. One superimposition is when the material aspects appear sentient, conscious. So your mind, your body, your different aspects become as if they are sentient. It is a product of my mind. What science says, that consciousness is something you will create when you are born. So it is actually a creation of the mind, consciousness. So your consciousness belongs to you. Your consciousness belongs to you. My consciousness belongs to me.
I think the consciousness creates the mind, not the mind creating the consciousness.
That is Vedanta. But science doesn't agree that. Science says consciousness is a product of your individual mind. So that's why if a insect is there, a mosquito is there, it has got a different consciousness, it appears. Because it is limited in terms of what it can generate. Whereas the human conscious is very big because my mind is better. My brain is better. It is able to create a better consciousness compared to others is what science believes. But what we are telling, no, Vedanta says, no. Whether it is consciousness in human being or this is only an instrument and everything else is same. So that is one superimposition that you have. But second superimposition is more subtle. You are telling that I am already reached. No. I becomes very, second, this one is, it is like a pot space and the space outside. Pot is thinking, this is my space. Mm-hmm. Because I am 2 liter pot, I can keep 2 liter of water or 2 liter of rice, whatever is there, and associated space is my space. That is the I that gets into you in terms of sadhana. So second superimposition is to break that small pot which is there, to say that pot space and the space outside is one and the same. There is no other this one. Mm-hmm. So that capital I becomes a object from the aspect of the overall space that is there. So there are two superimpositions.
The capital I was at one point is a small space.
Correct.
But when it's eliminated and the space becomes joined, there is no capital I.
Correct. Capital I also goes off and that Brahman remains.
Yeah.
So as long as you are thinking of I, small k, this one, there are relative statuses. Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat. Ishvara, Jiva, Jagat. So capital I, small I, body. Whereas Ishvara is also a superimposition.
Capital I, small
is the second one.
Capital I, small I, world.
Correct.
World
associated. Correct. Anyway, we will come to that when we reach that spot. First, we have to break the first superimposition of that I am not this body, mind, intellect is something which we must first do.
We've been hearing this for so many years.
But we get twisted. See that this is different way It is the same thing ultimately,
And I don't-
but in a little bit different way.
How it is being put across. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, remember, Prajapati is the one who created this Rai and Prana. Now we are looking at that Prana in the aspects of Murtam Amurtam, and what we are telling is that Murtam Amurtam, everything is matter. In other words, Prana can be looked at as a matter itself and try to understand that they are not two different things he created. You experience them as one and the same. And what is that? Prajapati. So what is required in this particular aspects is, don't go by the terms that are getting used in terms of sun and moon or Murtam Amurtam or Prana and Rai. Ultimately, it is that Prajapati who is manifested as this entire thing. That is the same rope which is getting manifested as the entire snake. Now don't try to dissect the snake, say it has got a tail, it has got a body, it has got a hood, it has got fangs, it has got poison. Don't go by the dividing this particular aspect. It is the same rope which is creating this entire what you call a snake, which has got all these aspects associated with that. Yeah. Okay. So now we go into, because we said sun and the moon, and initial first verse we said everything is matter. Prana is matter, Rai is matter, and this matter, whether you look it as form or formless, everything can be looked at as matter. Now we go into the energy aspect. So everything can be looked at as the energy aspect associated with that. So that is 6th verse. Yeah. Athaditya udyan
Adaditya
Udyan
yat prachim disham
Yat Prachim Disham
pravishati
Pravishati
tena prachyan
Tena Pracham
pranan
Pranan
okay, pranan rasmushi
Rashmishu
rasmishu, correct,
Rashmishu
sannidhatte
Sannidhate
yad dakshinam
Yat Dakshinam
yat pratichim
Pratichim
yat pratichim
Yat Pratichim
yadudichim
Yadudichim
yat adho
Yat Ado
yat urdhvam
Yat Urdhvam
yat antaradisho
Yat Antaradisho
yat antaradisho
Yat Antaradisho
yat sarvam
Yat Sarvam
prakashayati
Prakashayati
tena sarvan
Deva Sarvam
pranan
Pranan
rasmishu
Rashmishu
sannidhatte.
Sannidhate
Okay, sannidhatte actually kind of holds or thrills is the term that is used by Gurudev here. Yeah. Yat aditya. Now we are looking at everything from the sun perspective or the energy perspective. So sun becomes a very important symbol to represent this prana in this world. Yeah. So sun, aditya, adyan yat prachim. Prachim is east direction. Yeah. So it appears as if having arisen, this sun, what it is doing, it is going towards the east direction, prachim disham, pravishati. Yeah. Pravishati, it enters into this. It's as if sun is, see, it's experientially, it's as if sun is going into the east direction, because we are seeing the sun rising from the east direction. And what it is telling is, when he goes into east direction, it's as if he is taking or claiming all the pranas from that particular direction, and then when he goes from that prana, rashmishu sannidhatte, in the sun rays, it is collecting all the pranas when the sun goes towards east direction, and when he comes and then he goes into other directions. What all directions he is going? He is going into southern direction, he is going into western direction, and he is going into northern direction. So Dakshinam is the south direction. Yeah. Pratichin is the western direction. And Udichim is the northern direction. Uttara is what we normally use, yeah? Dakshina, Uttara, Turpu, Padamara. In Telugu, is the four which are there associated with that.
Oh, so two of the words you use
Yeah.
that we use.
Oh, okay. Sannidhate. So Dakshina is the southern direction. Pratichim is the western direction. Udichim is the northern direction. Yeah, associated with that. Adaha means below. Then he says below. Adaha is below. Urdhvam is the above. So different directions that are there, he goes everywhere. When he goes to eastern direction, he collects all this prana, and when he comes and then he goes into western direction, southern direction, northern direction, above direction, below direction, all directions that we talk about. Adaha, Urdhvam, zenith, and Antara. Antara is intermediate directions. We have this southwest, northwest, southeast, northeast. So intermediate directions also he goes, which is the Antara Disha, and Sarvam. So he says everywhere. After putting all this, and Prakashayanti, it actually illumines. Illumines with what? Illumines with the prana that is associated with that. And this prana is the one where pranam is the creatures that are created, and Rashmishu. In that race, when these pranas go into these creatures are able to function, and it's as if the whole matter comes alive with the pranas. Now this is a upasana that is being talked about here. How a rishi is visualizing that prana is making the entire rai work in terms of the creation that we talk about. At a very high level he is talking about. He is not really talking about individual self, but he is here very clearly that small I, big I that we are talking about, even the big I that is associated with individual is nothing but that one particular sun who actually bringing this prana, and it appears to be making individuals work, or the prana getting, it's as if the prana is alive in individuals, but that is one prana which actually creates one space which is creating different pot spaces. The pot space may feel it is individual, but that pot space is nothing but that prana, and is being now linked to the sun with the sun rays.
If I see it that way, the sun is going everywhere. So let's say sun right now. What about those creatures which don't appear in sun?
You may think the sun is not there, but the prana which is there, and once the sun is illumining here,
The
energy aspect is spreading everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, the energy aspect is
that's what
spreading.
we're talking about. Is that energy that.
So it's not only east, west, this, whether it is up, down. Means where there is a athala, patala, tala, atala, rasa, atala. So everywhere that is there, this sun is actually appearing to be spreading this prana everywhere in this world. So is this intermediate, south, west, north, up, down.
Prana you're using as for energy?
Energy, or the vitality aspect.
Yeah.
The vitality aspect.
And
Energy.
without the sun, nothing can.
Yeah.
And even the oil they're digging that's thousands and millions of years below, the energy eventually came from there.
Or matter and energy, transferable.
So sun and moon, they represent this energy and matter again.
They are
So,
transferable. They are transferable.
correct. It is not even transferable.
Well,
they are one and the same,
they are
appear
one
to
and
be
the
in
same.
different aspects that
From
we
one you can
experience.
create, other you can create.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what the
You had enough?
question
Heavy
is telling.
dose.
No.
If they got a heavy dosage, what will happen to this side of the table?
I know.
But
We will stop the class and then
No,
maybe we
it's,
can take the class.
before, okay, you stop, then I have to ask you something else.
Yes.
Okay.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्छते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ